Hello, everybody, potheads, weed freaks, kinda curious. I hope you are here to listen to Jake's Part 2 episode. Part 1 was last week, now it's time for Part 2. And if you want to hear somebody else, you can go listen to somebody else. But this is also a good one, just like all the other ones. So here we go with the rest of Jake's interview. So can you talk a little bit more in depth about really just how your experience of the music is different? Is there a difference in how you relate to the music itself compared to the lyrics, or vice versa? What's your experience of music like when you get high?
Well, I can definitely say if I'm listening to some like intense rap, I'm just like, I'm in it. I'm just like, yeah, yeah. Tell him DMX, just like, go give it to you. I'm a lot more like in it. Now, I definitely sing along more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where if I'm like not high, I'm just like listening to music. But when I'm high, I am DMX and the Rough Riders are with me, and I'm just like, like,
yeah.
So it definitely makes it more enjoyable, I think.
And then what about some other styles of music?
So with like, let's say EDM, for example, you feel it more like in your body, and it takes you back to where, it takes you back to like a concert that you can remember. And it just brings up all those feelings and how you were like in that moment of that concert where you're with like hundreds of sweaty people and their bodies are all rubbing up against you, and you're getting sweat in your face and stuff, but everybody's on the same level. And when you listen to like EDM and smoke weed, it kind of takes you back to that feeling. You're like, yeah. You
just remember those good old days.
Yep. And then if I'm listening to like 90s pop rock or like, the Chili Peppers or Blink-182, it reminds, I'll scream the lyrics in my car.
Oh,
at that point. I'm just like, singing Good Charlotte just at the top of my lungs at a stoplight. People are looking at me all funny.
Yeah, the car is the best place to sing to music, especially if you maybe don't know all the words, or if you're not so confident on your singing abilities. The car is the place to do that. I'm just imagining, when you're talking about DMX, I'm just imagining some very timid, shy person who doesn't really talk a lot, or not very outgoing, and then they get high and they listen to DMX and they just start barking and singing along with rap. And I'm not saying that that's what you're like necessarily, but that's the image I have in my head, which I think is awesome.
That's pretty accurate,
Okay.
And then it's like, oh, part of the Rough Riders,
Yeah. Nice. And so movies, TV shows, how are those different? What's your experience like with those when you get high?
So I hate watching scary movies when I'm high, because I definitely seem to like remember it better.
Oh, okay.
God, what was the movie? I can't remember the exact movie, but it came out. It wasn't that long ago, and this like little girl, like she's having like an allergic reaction. She sticks her head out the window, and then there's like a telephone pole.
Hereditary.
That movie. Oh, I watched it high. And for like 2 weeks later, I was having the worst nightmares, man. I was just like, I was freaking out.
Well, shit, dude. I mean, that movie is going to fuck you up no matter what.
Yeah. And so then I watched it again when I wasn't high, and I was like, okay, all right. Oh, and then I was like, man, this really got me really good the first time, but I think I was just so high and I was dreaming about it and everything. And I was like, this is horrible. So, but it does make a lot of things more like intense. Like if I'm watching like Bob's Burgers or The Office, I'm laughing hysterically, like much more than not high. Not high is still funny, but if you're high and watching like The Office or Parks and Rec, my cheeks hurt after a couple episodes.
Oh yeah. What do you think is going on? What do you think about it is it makes things funnier? Why do you think that is? And you might not have an answer. I'd just like to ask.
That's a great question. I don't know if it's just like when you're not high, you don't catch up on, or you don't catch the little innuendos or the little facial keys, or the, I guess you could say the mood of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're super high, you pick up on all that stuff. It's like, oh God, Michael Scott's face, he's making this expression, and it just makes this super cringeworthy. So then you're just like laughing, and you feel like you have like a deeper feeling, like, oh, that hurts me. I can only imagine how they're feeling,
Yeah, like you can relate a lot more to the situation, to the characters, to whatever it is.
Yep, exactly. They become more relatable.
Yeah. And all those shows that you mentioned, The Office, Parks and Rec, Bob's Burgers, I mean, those are just some of the best shows out there ever. And, they're worth watching anyway. And then if you get high, I mean, it's just on a whole other level.
Oh, exactly. And I've watched them not high, and I'm still laughing. But it's just like, when you're high, you can like imagine yourself being Gene, talking to his dad and mom, and that, Gene's my favorite character. Probably Gene and Tina, I would say, on Bob's Burgers. But you can just relate to them much more. Like, yeah, that was an awkward time for me too, buddy.
One of my favorite lines, one of my favorite episodes, but one of my favorite lines from the episode is when he dresses up like his dad and puts the mustache on, and they're walking down the hallway, and Bob is in front of Gene. They're walking away, and Gene goes, "Stop following me in front."
Yeah, stop following me in front. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh God, that show is amazing. All right. Yeah, I'm sure we could talk about TV shows and horror movies all day, but that's not what this show is about.
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the next thing is food. How is food different when you get high?
Oh man, I definitely fill up more. You know what I mean? Like I definitely overeat when I'm high, because I'm just like, oh my God, this is so good. This beef and bean burritos never tasted better. I don't even like beans, and I'm shoving this in my face right now. So it definitely, I tend to overeat when I'm super high, but it's just because the food is so good and you're like so into it. As to where when I'm not high, I'm just like, okay, I'm full. I don't want to eat any more of this. But when I'm high, I'm like, I got a little bit of burrito left. I could finish that.
So I don't know a lot about the science. So maybe and if you don't, that's fine too. But do you know if there's any science about cannabis speeding up your metabolism, and that's partly why we want to eat more?
So that's what people say, that it speeds up your metabolism, but I don't think there's any science behind it. I think, and a lot of people, like, they're definitely doing a lot more studies on things like this, but I think it literally just is like, it tricks your metabolism to thinking you're hungry. I don't know if it could speed it up. I mean, possibly. I can't be 100% on that one, but I just know, like, if I smoke an indica, and that's the weird thing. It's like only indicas will do it to me. It puts me in the couch, and I'm like a whole bottle of Pringles deep by the time I realize what happened. So I definitely do think there is something there.
Yeah, that's one of those things that the science just needs more time on to figure out what's actually happening. Because there's something happening with the munchies, with people who maybe have anxiety and get nauseous or have nausea and don't want to eat, and then they get high and then they do want to eat. I just find it so interesting that happens, and it's in those cases, those anxiety-ridden cases, I think it's very helpful. Obviously, for us, eating a full tube of Pringles is probably not a very good idea, but there's definitely something happening there.
I totally agree with you. I'm just not sure what it is. It could be a metabolism thing. If that's the case, God, I wish I had more self-control not to eat when I was high,
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I got a bag of Doritos that I'm like slowly picking through, and it takes like all my energy not to eat the whole thing.
The whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah. And then so yes, you get the munchies. So you said that like things taste better. That's the physical side. Do you feel that your experience of the food mentally, emotionally, spiritually, do you think that's different at all? Or is it just, hey, this food tastes good and I want to eat it all?
I definitely think there's a lot more like, you turn into almost like that movie Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Where he's like putting the cheese in his mouth and he's putting something else in his mouth, and he's like, and then this tastes like that and this tastes like that. You definitely get a lot more. You definitely feel more fulfilled when you eat. Definitely. I don't know. That is such a weird question to think about. I've never thought about that before.
All right, well, now you'll start to think about that, and you can email me once you've thought about it and tell me what you think.
Yeah, now we're going to have a follow-up episode about, we may just have to eat and then talk about, get high and then eat and then talk about how we're feeling.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned Ratatouille, you're talking about that scene where he eats something and then you see this like visualization, and he's describing the flavors and how it feels. That's what you're talking about, right?
Color, it's like a color explosion of one flavor and then another color explosion of the other flavor. Yeah, that's how I picture it in my head.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually think about that often. Maybe not in like super detailed, but yes, that specific scene from that movie has come up multiple times when I eat food. So yeah, I totally know what you're talking about that.
It takes up realty in your mind for sure.
Yes. Okay, so another thing that I like to ask about, and I have to say that this is a personal subject, so feel free to pass. Sex. What is sex like when you get high?
So it's definitely more intense and more passionate. But sometimes I get so high that I'm just like, oh, can we not? Like, can I drink some water first? Like, I know you're in the mood right now. I will be in the mood in like 5 minutes when I am not as high.
Right.
Like I'm too high right now. Give me like 5 minutes, drink some water, get a Gatorade, and then let's circle back to this exact feeling and get it on.
Just hold on a second. Just hold on.
Yeah, it's like give me like 5 minutes. Just 5. So
it's more intense. Are there any other details that you want to go into on that, or is that a pretty good description?
It's hot, it's heavy, it's definitely a lot more passion, and you're definitely connecting on a different level. And like I said, it's definitely there's a lot of passion, a lot of passion going on.
Yeah, and that can describe both the physical and the mental or emotional side of things.
Yeah, it's definitely better. Weed definitely improves it.
That is the important part of that. It's better. Let's see. So you like to take naps. We talked about CBN and how that helps with sleep. In general, how do you think cannabis affects your sleep?
I feel like it's a deeper sleep, where if I smoke before bed or, take some edibles before bed or take, some tincture before bed or whatever the case is, I feel I'm in a deeper slumber, where I'm not going to wake up as much and I'm not going to wake up at, 5 o'clock every morning whereas if I'm not high, I'm more of a light sleeper. If Haley moves, I'm like, oh, what's going on? Or if I, hear a bump in the night, I'm just like, oh, something's out there, and as where I'm high, I'm just like, yeah. And I just sleep right through it. I can sleep through a tornado,
Hopefully you don't ever have to do that.
Yes, please.
Right. And then how do you think your dreams are affected by cannabis, if at all?
I seem to have a lot more dreams when I go to sleep high. And I can remember them a little better when I'm high. When I'm not high, it's just like I close my eyes and I open. I'm like, oh, 6 o'clock in the morning. All right, here we go. But I feel like I can catch the last part of my dream and remember that last part much better when, smoking weed before bed.
Okay. Yeah, dreams are so weird in that way that, a lot of people say, well, I don't dream, but then does that just mean that you don't remember them when you wake up? You have no memory of them. So it's hard to know if cannabis is affecting the dreams or are they just affecting the sleep, which then therefore will affect your experience of the dreams. It's hard to know exactly what's going on there.
Exactly. And I think the closest we can get without, being strapped to like a medical, chair or having all these prods on your head and stuff like that is probably like, I heard iWatches. I don't have an iWatch, but I heard iWatches like can track your sleep cycle and everything like that. So I always wonder if if someone gets super blazed and tries to go to sleep, and if they do have dreams or, some type of activity, like, will your watch catch that? So, if I had an iPhone, I would definitely have an iWatch, and I'd probably be testing that out quite often.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those wearable devices now that will track your sleep, and I'm sure that they do different things. I think the Apple Watches definitely check it's like how restless are you, which I think it more checks on like how much are you moving around or are you just lying still. Obviously it's going to check your pulse as well, but I'm sure some of them are actually pretty advanced to figure out like more information than just that. Yeah, that's that'll be a good thing to experiment with. This is my sleep
so
when Go ahead.
I was just about to say, if anybody has an iWatch, let us know.
Yeah. I actually do have an Apple Watch, but I always, in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, I'm charging it up for the next day. So I've never experimented with anything like that. But now you're making me think, maybe I should track my sleep.
Now you're gonna try it.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So how this is very much depends on your personal situation, but do you think cannabis has affected your spirituality at all, or your religion, or whatever you identify, whatever you believe, if anything? How has cannabis affected that?
So, growing up, it was definitely very religious household, church every Sunday, youth group on Wednesdays, vacation Bible school, the whole 9 yards. Definitely very involved in the church and everything like that. And cannabis is I've definitely eased back. I can definitely say I don't think I'm as uptight in my own, I guess, religious views, you could say. I feel like I'm a lot more accepting and a lot more open to where, a lot of the people that I still know and a lot of my family are still very like closed-minded. And I do think that cannabis has helped open my eyes and definitely I think it's just made me a better person overall. Cause I definitely see like how I was thinking before and I was like, yeah, now I see that that's fucked up.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing just with age in general. But yeah, I think when you add cannabis to the mixture, people tend to get away from religion a bit more. And so I guess the other side of that is what do you or how do you view spirituality? What do you believe? And then if you believe anything, and then do you think that cannabis has an effect on that?
Oh, that's another hard one. It's, I would definitely like to think that something happens after we die, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever know. You know what I mean? There's times that I think I'm like, oh, heaven, that would be a sick place if they had weed.
Right.
Like, do they have weed? Sign me up, Yeah. But kind of in general, I think you should just, be a good person, look out for your neighbors and, don't hate. I think that those are the core beliefs in any religion. And, to me, it's crazy when you hear, like, for an example, Donald Trump, okay? the big T man, okay? Like, I see a lot of religious people that I still know, like, support him, back him, and, think he should be the president, okay? And I'm just like, okay, but he says, like, you're thinking that, like, God has sent this man to be our president, where, like, that he's not a very good person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's ever read the Bible. So I grew up in a very loving, religion, to where it's like, love your neighbor, da 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 da. But then it's like, all right, well, has this changed? Has something changed while I was gone? Like, I missed the part where it's like, oh, love your white neighbor, don't love your African-American neighbor or anything like that. It's like, all right, I'm pretty sure it says you got to love everybody, So to me, that's how I kind of look at it. I think a lot of people rely too much on religion. I think they rely on it as a crutch, but I think that if you're a good person and you don't have hate in your heart, I think you're going to be much better off.
Yes, I completely agree. I also think that he has never read the Bible. Not that necessarily means something, but when you're sort of touting yourself as this person of this group of people, maybe you should know what you're talking about, and he clearly doesn't.
Exactly. And I always think of the photo op he did when he was in front of the church and he's holding the Bible upside down.
Right.
Like, I literally laugh every time I see that picture. I'm just like, and this is your Messiah. Here you go.
Yeah. There were so many things wrong about that one little situation. There were so many problems with that. Big problems and little problems.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, enough about that. So given your job as you said general manager of a dispensary?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think, there's two owners, and then there's me, and then, there's managers underneath me.
Okay. So given that role, do you consider yourself these days to be a pot nerd or a connoisseur of some kind?
100%. There's people like my bud tenders now. For example, there was a glass nail and a dome sitting in our display case at work, and they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a nail for dabbing." And they're like, "What? How do you do this?" And I'm like, "Are you guys serious? You don't know how to use the glass nail?" And so I did a whole little demonstration, and I was like, all right, well, you put this glass piece in here, you heat this up, you throw your dome on top, and then you throw your wax, you touch the wax to the hot nail, and they're like, what? I've never seen that before. What? And, I think one of the bud tenders was a little older than me, and the other one was quite a bit younger, and I was just like, yep. That's how you do this. So I definitely felt a little nerdy showing them that. And I was just like, I thought this was common knowledge.
Right. Obviously that is not the case. And then like with the science of how they create the concentrates and the wax and those types of things, and then also just the science of how cannabis affects your body. Do you feel like you know a lot about that and you nerd out on stuff like that?
I definitely feel like I know a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think there is an abundance of more information out there. Because, I mean, back in the day, there used to be this thing among bud tenders. It was like, we used to say like, oh, this is a 1-to-1 tincture with THC and CBD. And all the bud tenders were like, oh, yeah, you need THC to activate the CBD. And then that's what you tell everybody. To get them to buy the 1-to-1 ratio, THC CBD. And then come to find out, you don't need THC to activate the CBD. And so then we started telling everybody that. And then people are like, well, you just told me this a little while ago. And I was like, well, we were wrong. Just like there's more science to prove that you don't need the THC to activate the CBD. But when the information becomes available, it's like, man, we really used to like say anything just to sell this THC CBD product. Now that there's science behind it, we can feel more confident in educating the consumers.
Yeah, the science has changed so much. Like we were saying before, just in the last few years, we just know a lot more. And there's always new stuff to learn. It's so crazy.
Oh, exactly. And, if it's because if you don't keep up on it, it's like you miss out on something. Then you're just like, oh, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, I totally knew that stuff. So when you were, 19, 20 years old when you started this, I don't know how old you are now, but do you think that over the years, your view of the world or yourself has changed at all, specifically since you started smoking pot and because of that?
So yeah, now I'm 29, and I definitely think my view of the world has changed, and view of myself has changed. I definitely think that, with cannabis, that I stopped kind of caring what people thought about me, and more like just cared about being happy. You know what I mean? So that, was a huge relief to me. And, I definitely become more open-minded because of cannabis as well.
That's really good. I love hearing stuff like that. Do you think, there might not be a lot of it, but, when you're at work, you're sober all day. Do you think that that the experience of being high has affected your sober life? Are you able to take some of those lessons or that feeling into your sober life at all?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And it's so funny the way that works. It's just like, okay, well, you just feel like all is well, even though you haven't smoked cannabis. I definitely think, and it may just be because it's still in your system from when you have smoked, but it's still, it's definitely a different sober feeling. You know what I mean? You're more, it's weird, but you feel more conscious, if that makes sense.
So you feel more conscious when you're sober because you sort of know what it's like to be high?
Exactly. I don't know if that makes sense or not. It's a very weird, like, I definitely want to be high,
right?
But when I'm sober, I feel like the marijuana has opened my mind to different suggestions, different ways of thinking. And then I think about it more when I'm sober, and I'm just like, you know what? That's totally right. Like I should think that.
Yeah, I like that. And it does make sense to me. So do you feel like, given that feeling and having more experience with that throughout your life going forward from here, what do you think your future with cannabis will be like?
I definitely think I'm going to be smoking it or ingesting it some way until I'm very old. I definitely know cannabis is going to be in my life forever. I wouldn't live in a place that I couldn't get legal cannabis or anything like that. As far as the future goes, I'm not 100% what that holds. I know what I want it to hold. I'd like to be, on the same level as like Burner and his cookies brand and stuff like that. I'd love to be on that same level. But honestly, if my future is, being debt free, being able to smoke weed with, my future wife and our animals, then, I think that's going to be the best future for me, and then whatever else happens after that, that's only a bonus.
Yeah, that's a very nice, good life, and I really hope that you get that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, at this point, it looks like that's where it's going, so that's good.
Exactly. At this rate, I'm doing pretty well so far. So
yes. I like to ask this question because I just like this next question because I like hearing different people's reactions to it, sort of. So if you were to put a percentage on this, how much do you think pot is a part of your life?
100%. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we talked about, it's part of my job. Um, it's a part of my free time. My brain is always thinking about pot, and I just enjoy it enough to think about it all the time, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, saying it's 100%. That's obviously the biggest number that you could choose. It sounds like then it's a pretty big part of your identity.
Exactly. And I've oh my God. Well, my last name is Stone. All through all through high school, my nickname was Stoner, and I didn't smoke weed
Oh
one
man.
bit in high school. So now it's like I always use the jokes like, "Oh, I grew into my nickname," as like a little cannabis pun, and it's kind of like a dad joke that I've used many, many times. I think it's always going to be a part of my life, and I'm totally like, that's kind of what I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, and my life has shifted because of cannabis. Like, I was going to school for criminal justice, and I was going to actually be a cop. I always wanted to be a cop for some reason when I was a kid. I was watching like Lethal Weapon and, Rush Hour, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. But then I was like, wow, cops kind of suck. And I realized that when I was smoking weed. So I was like, I don't want to be a cop anymore.
Yeah, I want my life to be weed, and now I can actually do that legally.
Exactly. And I always thought I wanted to be a cop because I wanted to help people, but I think I have found a way to help people that involves less violence. So I think that's another reason why I've attached to cannabis so much, is because I'm still helping people, but in a much better way, I think.
Okay, so let's dig into that just a little bit. We don't need to go too far, but why or how do you think that this helps people?
Man, for me, the reason I first started smoking was recreational, and then it was more like, I was using it more for like antidepressant, like an anti-anxiety. That's how it's kind of helped me the most, is definitely the anti-anxiety. Depression, not so much anymore, but I always felt like anxious, and I didn't know if there was like anything I could do about it. And I was like, shit, this is just gonna be my life. I'm just gonna be an anxious train wreck my entire life. And then you smoking weed, it's like, okay, it calms my nerves. I'm not so uptight and everything like that. And that's how I found relief. But then just working in the industry, you see that people with cancer, they're coming in. People with restless leg syndrome, they're coming in. And they're all finding relief from this one thing that is allegedly bad for you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And these people are finding comfort and relief. And that, to me, it's like, okay, well, it can't be bad if it's helping these people that are dying find relief and stuff like that. And people who can't sleep, it's helping these people sleep for the first time. It's like, to me, that's how it's helping people. And it could be you could use cannabis for any ailment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I definitely see cannabis in like a whole different light than when I first started.
That's awesome. Can you think of any specific times that somebody has come into the dispensary, and have they described how it has helped them?
We had a bud tender named, I think his name was Casey, and his mom was just diagnosed with cancer. And his mom never really touched cannabis or anything like that. I think he was just 21 and just started bud tending. He was kind of new to it as well. But I'd always hook his mom up with like RSO, which is like Rick Simpson oil. She came into the dispensary after like the third or fourth time he'd buy it for her, then go, bring it to her and stuff like that. She came in and she's like in tears, just like crying. I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, honestly, like, you helping me out, giving, this product to my son to buy at like a super cheap price has made a huge difference. Like, she's not in as much pain, she's eating, and it's making her chemotherapy treatment less harsh. So I think that was definitely, and that was about 3-4 years ago that happened. And so that was a huge impact on me. And I was just like, oh shit. And like, other people are like, the other bud tenders were crying, and the mom's like, can I give you a hug? Da-da-da. And I was like, yes. So I think at that point I started looking at it more like medicinal instead of just recreational.
Yeah. That's the thing that it just keeps on coming back to that. I mean, no matter who it is, whoever I talk to, there's always something in there medical, either physical or mental, emotional. It's always in there. That was really awesome to hear that story. If you were to quit smoking pot today, how do you think that would change your life?
I definitely think I'd be skinnier. I'll tell you that.
No, less Pringles.
Yeah, definitely less Pringles, less Doritos, and everything. I think that I would probably be a lot more anxious, a lot more. I'd be definitely a lot more stressed. I would feel like probably my parents did, when they were my age, not knowing what was going to happen and, worrying about what was going to happen, where now it's just like, whatever happens. And, I'm going to be okay. So I definitely think that marijuana gives me that approach more. And, that's where I kind of feel bad for my parents. I was like, man, I wish you guys would have smoked when, you were younger. You guys wouldn't have been so uptight,
Right. You learn from your mistakes, or you learn later. Actually, that's an interesting point. And I don't want to out anybody, but have your parents started to try it at all?
Oh, I'm trying to get my mom to try it so hard. My dad, he'll never try it.
Yeah.
My dad he'll never try it. But he had a rough childhood, so like he's against anything fun like alcohol or cigarettes or marijuana or anything like that. So I think maybe one day I'll get my mom to try it, but she is such a bubbly person anyways. Like, she can drink. I just got her to drink a strawberryta for one of the first times like 2 years ago, and she got halfway through the can and she's just like, her face is red, she's smiling, she's just laughing her ass off at dumb stuff. So I think that, man, if we got her on cannabis, it'd be video worthy. We'll just say that.
Oh yeah, send that to me if that ever happens, please, and thank you.
Yeah, done.
Maybe I'll have to interview her as well.
Oh God, if we could get her interviewed, I think that would be amazing. I think she's, like I said, she raised 2 boys on her own. She's an extremely strong woman, still very religious and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think it just takes time to break her of the mold,
Oh yeah, for sure. When you've got, decades of that one feeling, that's hard to break. And then my last question for everybody is, what do you want to say to pot?
Man, I want to say, like I'm sure what everybody else says, is thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for opening my mind. I guess you can say thank you for helping me understand myself and to understand other people, and to really change the way I was thinking before, and to open my mind to new ideas and to new horizons. And yeah, just thank you. I mean, I think I'd probably be an uptight, asshole cop somewhere, doing the whole cop. And I don't think that's bad at all, but I definitely don't think it was for me. And I'm thankful that, marijuana showed that it wasn't for me.
Thank God for pot.
Yeah, amen.
Nice. Well, on that note, I just want to thank you for your time, for being a part of this. That was a really fun interview, and I hope that you start to be more cool with horror movies and you start to watch a lot more. We can definitely give you some recommendations because we are a horror household over here. So also thank you to everybody for listening. I hope you're enjoying this podcast. If you want to throw a few bucks my way, I can't talk today. I do have a Patreon. You can email me at whenimhighdoc@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's mostly at whenimhighdoc, I think. Check the show notes. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for listening, and this is a very, very small podcast, but it's slowly finding its foothold and growing a little bit here and there. That's all I gotta say. Thank you to everybody for listening, and until next time, this episode and the next episode, what you're hearing now is the second episode with Jake, and in next week's episode, you'll hear me talk to somebody else. So thank you very much. Goodbye.